Well, I'm recording it now.
You can send it to me too, whichever
I
works.
think I'll have to do that because I can't find I know how to do that, but I can't find the thing.
Okay.
All right.
All right, we're recording.
All right. And George has posted the agenda on the chat box. So if you want to pull up the agenda, you can. We've got 6 items on the agenda. Does anybody have anything that they want to add to it before we get started? All right. We'll take that as a no. Just so you know, the board met earlier this month. We are getting in the habit of meeting on a regular basis so that we can kind of get things more organized and in order for these meetings and move us along in our business. So that's how a lot of the stuff on the agenda for today came to be. And we're going to kick off the meeting with a welcome. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. How many people do we have here now? We've got quite a few. 14. Awesome. Okay. So we have a lot to go over today. First off is announcements. Does anybody have any announcements that they'd like to make before we move on? All right. Number 2, Google for Nonprofits. George, take it away.
So Google for Nonprofits is the first step to get registered for Google for Nonprofits is to get registered with TechSoup. TechSoup verifies that we're a 501(c) nonprofit legally established in the United States of America. And then once that's done, then Google can just check with TechSoup to actually decide whether or not we're eligible for Google for Nonprofits. The part that we're kind of stuck at right now is I did all the paperwork for Google for TechSoup, and then TechSoup wanted more information, and so they wanted a letter sent to them on our letterhead. So with Jason's help, we made some letterhead, but they wanted an explanation of what it is our organization does. They wanted the copy of the 501(c) IRS letter, and they just wanted some more information to verify that we are a nonprofit organization legally established. And that all got sent to them last week. And they said it can take up to 10 days to 2 weeks to hear back from them to get that verification done, at which time they might say, you're good to go, we believe you're a nonprofit, or they might say, guess what, we need more stuff. My understanding after talking to Robin about this is that this is typical for TechSoup, that they make the bar really high to verify that you're a nonprofit, and then once you're verified, then it's pretty easy after that. So Christopher did email me a question that I didn't even see in my email until yesterday. I didn't have a chance to ask him back. He asked about the cost for Google for Nonprofits. Google for Business charges $5 per user. Google for Nonprofits, if we are eligible, charges nothing. There's no fee. It's completely free. But it would give us the ability to send out emails as koha-US.org instead of George at Knuckles or Christopher at Coeur d'Alene Public Library. It would also give us a central place to put all of our data instead of having some of it on the wiki and stuff spread out across a whole bunch of different services. It would give us a place, a central repository for all of our documents. So it's in the works, and we're just waiting now to hear back from TechSoup so that we can go on to the next hurdle, which is registering with Google. So,
All right. Any questions? All right. Next up is website. Is Michael here?
He's coming.
Well, I did get in touch with him, and he showed me his preliminary work and made a few suggestions. So he should have something ready for today.
Okay.
My guess is he's probably finishing it right now.
He was working on it today.
I actually did talk to him. I had to call it a support ticket today. So I got to talk with him briefly. I know he's out there.
He's probably working on your support ticket right now. That's why he's not here. It's your
Looking
fault.
at one or the other.
Okay, well, until he gets here, let's move on. Let's go to number 4, membership discussion, and we'll get back to him as soon as he's back. All right, membership discussion. So we had, I don't have a name on here of who was going to specifically talk about this, but I'll just go over some of the things that we had talked about. So the board met. We're talking about membership for koha-US because we want to be a little bit more formal and get all our ducks in a row so that when we start doing things as a group, we have more official voting happening. And so we're talking about membership for koha-US. Probably we want to start January. We would do the official rollout of membership in January, and we're looking at right now individual membership. We're not doing any kind of group memberships at this point, but we're going to do individual membership, and we're talking about a membership fee of $25 annually. And what that membership means is that people that are members get to vote on official group business outside of board meetings. When we are making decisions about development or funding, we want members to have a say in all this, so voting is very important. The other thing that membership at this point will include is discounts on conferences and other gatherings that we might have in the future. But at this point, for conferences, we don't have a set discount at this point. So right now it's just a discount. Jason, you put together something about membership earlier and sent that out. Do you have that handy?
Yeah.
Actually, you had
It was just kind of
membership, or was it several things?
It was just membership. It was kind of a draft of the bylaws, and I think we were gonna. The plan was the board was gonna review that at the October board meeting or pre-October board meeting, and then by the next meeting we would put that up for a vote.
Okay.
At the general meeting.
Does anybody have any qualms about us sharing our general what we have right now, just so people can get an idea of what we're going to be doing in October?
No.
Okay. Jason, can you share that?
Give me a second. Okay, there's a link in the chat.
Okay.
And it's definitely unrefined. We haven't really discussed it completely. It was kind of just I Googled up some different membership bylaws for nonprofits and put this together, but it's definitely not in its final form at all.
So up at the top, there's five sections under membership that are being defined, and then below on the relevant notes. So we talked about right now membership for individual for now will be include voting, voting on things like developments, changes in bylaws, something like this, like what we're proposing here for next month. We're just doing a general consensus of the group that meets online, but we want to have something a little bit more official and not be able to change bylaws willy-nilly. So having official members will help us in accountability for that. Also, members are going to be able to help with decisions at meetings and conferences, discounts at conferences or events, possibly in the future, free events for members with a fee for non-members. And I don't know about the cookies and the hats and lack of poetry.
You'll have to pay me not to read my poetry.
Yeah.
So again, the membership year would be January 1st through December 31st. The membership fee portion, or proration, so if you join late in the year, we'll prorate half of the year. Just because, $12.50, we don't want to get really nitpicky about dollars and cents here. So right now we're looking at one proration in the middle of the year. So this is just a general overview of what we're looking at for discussion. We will be reviewing this at the October board meeting and voting on the bylaws to include this. And this would not become active until January 1st, 2018. Any comments or questions about any of this? And you guys are easy.
I think for a draft, it looks pretty good so far.
I agree.
One of the things that we did have in discussion about this was section 4, the resignation and termination. We're still refining that section particularly. I don't think we're looking at anything so formal for not being a member. The latest comment was that you're simply not a member when you stop paying fees. So I don't think we need to have anything that formal in there, but otherwise, if there are any comments about any of this or anything else that somebody would like to see added to this, particularly for membership privileges, this is a good time to bring it up. Otherwise, this is what we will discuss at our board meeting in October.
I personally like the notion that we could vote somebody out.
Vote them off the island.
I also wonder what somebody would have to do to make us want to vote them out. That's just.
I can see the nice ceremony of setting up the group and stripping them of their eyeglass chain and taking away their sensible shoes.
Well, the first thing that we would vote on, for voting somebody out is whether or not they have a camera. I think that's kind of important that everybody has a camera. About half the group here we'd lose. No.
I would have to take their keyboard away and smash it.
Okay.
Actually, I do have one quick question here. I was just curious, why would it be better to go for like an institution level versus a personal level, or would that make any difference? I'm just thinking how there's me, but I work for, our consortium. Is it better just to have us as individuals or represent our institutions, or?
We talked about this as a starting point just because it's easier. So in the future, possibly library memberships or institutional memberships, but just for right now, for the sake of convenience, making it easier on us to, rather than trying to figure out a way to do individual membership, library membership, consortium membership. That sounded like a lot of work, so we decided to take the easy path.
I like it.
The big thing with it is, we wanted to get this rolling, and introducing the tiered membership would delay us getting this going. So when the need arises, if we can justify it and if we can make it equitable for everybody, then we will look it over. Otherwise, right now it's just the individual membership.
That works. Thanks.
Any other comments? All right. Let me get back to my agenda here. Michael, are you here yet?
You're muted.
Hey, I'm here.
Awesome. So we have on the agenda here discussion about the website.
Yes. Well, I have a brief something to show as I started something, but I kind of also have dialogue about the site itself. So let me show you what I have so far. Share my screen. Okay. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm working on the intro here. And so basically the intro runs kind of at the top here. And I'm starting to get a content structure and sort of navigation. So that's that kind of intro there. And then here is sort of the structure so far. So what I thought this would be was I'm trying to think of content types that reflect what's on the wiki right now. So there's sort of a like a category to connect with koha-US, learn from koha-US, and so I wanted to have the language be very purposeful in terms of what it was communicating and saying about the group. And there's sort of a donate to koha-US as well. And so I wanted to kind of use language that would sort of, like these squares here are sort of introducing what koha-US does. So koha-US for collaboration, for better libraries, for innovation. And each of these sections would take you to sections of the website. So I'm trying to sort of break out the content in this way and kind of have language that would sort of be inviting to people in each section. But I thought the main page, as you would scroll down, you'd have like highlights from koha-US, and you'd have photos from that as well. So there'd be some kind of new things popping in and out on this page here. So that's kind of the start I have now. My next step would be to start making these subpages and start putting content in. And for the donate out of a forum, things like that. But I think at this point, since I'm getting a structure down, we can start talking about building out more content if we want it, what content should go in this section. But I did want to get a sense of how you like the feel of this, the look of it, sort of like the language being used. I'm trying to do a sort of like marketing tagline thing, koha-US for, and then these are sort of the keywords that we sort of do and are for. And they correspond to content sections as well. So I'm trying to make it friendly and bright and outgoing is sort of my goal. So I'm not fearing using bright colors because I feel like that's sort of the vibe that we want to communicate perhaps. But let me know. I mean, what are your thoughts? Do you like the start of it? Yeah.
I like the way it looks a lot. Vicky in the chat box wanted to point out that you spelled koha wrong in those three boxes at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, I did. Fix that.
Oh my goodness.
And the proofreader in me says, okay, is it U.S. or is it US?
Well, that's the thing. And so one thing I was thinking of was, because I'm kind of thinking of like taglines and things. And Koha, I was sort of working with this, and I was like, koha-US and koha-US. And I thought, well, that's kind of a neat play on words, right? So it's like koha-US is for us, So I was kind of thinking how I could trade in some sort of like tagline that would incorporate that as well. Because it is kind of a neat, interesting play on words there with a koha-US and koha-US, because it's for us, right? Let's fix this other one here because I'm totally embarrassed that happened. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so
You missed one.
I missed one. Here we go.
There we go.
There we go. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So.
Yeah, the thing about koha-US, I've seen different iterations of it, whether it's online or on paper or whatever. I think officially with our logo, it's just koha-US, no dashes, no periods. And that is a thing that has cropped up from time to time and questioned. I think, my personal opinion is consistency. But I mean, I'm open to others, and we can also review. If we do want to update the logo to include whatever we decide. But yeah, I've heard people refer to us koha-US, koha-U.S. I've heard people refer to us as co-house.
Yeah.
So, I hear an emergency broadcast. Okay.
I think it is listed as koha-US in the bylaws, which were used to form the 501c3, so that might come into play.
And that's what the official government paperwork, koha-US without periods, does reflect.
Okay.
So
maybe
I think the logo obviously doesn't reflect that. So maybe that's something that we need to update in the logo. Just to again be consistent. But as far as the look, I like the look. Our city and our library have gone through a lot of renovations on websites, and one of the key things that we had talked about is when you hit a website, if you have a ton of information that you're hit with right off the go, people will get shocked or scared and lost in the data. And so I think we need to make sure that we're not overwhelming people when they land on this page. Keep it as simple as possible and straightforward to navigate. Don't give them a bazillion places to click. And second, we've really tried to stay away from scrolling a lot, especially on the landing page. If you have more informational pages, that's okay, but on the home page, scrolling can be a deterrence. Okay. And so the less we have to scroll, I think, is going to be better on the person that lands on the page and is curious about us.
Okay. Awesome.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I'm afraid so. Instead of teal background, how about a koa green background?
Okay, sure.
Tie in with the international one.
Yeah, definitely.
Which would mean you'd have to change at the top and koha. Actually, you might not.
What platform are you using?
Right now, it's just a static site, so I'm sort of making up the CSS and all that stuff, and jQuery stuff is in just files. I'll just have to, but it would be simple to take this into whatever platform we want. It's just JavaScript and for the animation stuff and CSS and all that. So It would be easy to port out other places, I'd imagine.
Any other comments? All right, Michael, thank you very much for what you've shown us.
Yeah.
And just so everybody knows, Fred is kind of the liaison working with Michael, and others at Bywater to get this website underway. You know, we've been operating off of the wiki for several years, and that's served the purpose, but it's a little bit clunky, and we want to get something that's a little bit more official looking and easier for us to keep updated, and obviously something easier to navigate. So we are looking forward to this and really appreciative of Bywater for their help in getting this going.
Applause to Bywater.
Yes. And we're also working on streamlining our domain. Right now we've been going by koha-US. Is it koha-US.net?
Yes.
And we have had koha-us.org that was pointing to something else, and now that points to the same place. Thank you, Fred. We are working on having that moved over to our hands. I know that we've got other, is it Fred? Do you own that the .org one right now?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're working on moving that over, and then we're also working on a host site for our website when we get that ready to go. So.
Yeah, I think we should also register koha-us.us. I don't think we have to do every single domain, but that one would be good.
We can talk about that.
Okay.
I know that the .org was the big one. So, all right. Anything else on the website before we move on? We're moving right along here. Okay. We have I want to go back to one more thing on the membership real quick. We talked about the fee. I wanted everybody to understand the fee. What the fee is, the purpose of that fee is going to be we're going to use that fee for any kind of organizational costs. So web hosting, domain registration. That's the big thing right now. We don't really have a lot of operating costs. Anything else from those fees collected are going to go towards conference and for development. So those are the key things that those fees are going towards at this time. And Jason, maybe we should make sure that is pointed out in the bylaws as well at this point, so people have a clear understanding where those fees are going.
Okay, I'll add that to my notes.
All right. Committee reports. So we have a couple committees, fundraising and finance. We're going to start off with fundraising committee with George.
Well, we didn't actually, we talked about creating a fundraising committee out of what was already existing. That's what we talked about at the meeting that we had, the board meeting. And I hadn't had a chance to talk to Todd about this yet because he did say that I should call him, and then I've been busy trying to buy this house thing and haven't had a chance to call him back. But at one point there was a discussion of possibly creating a position called board appointed fundraiser, and that would require, a change of the bylaws and all that. But there is plenty of provision in the existing bylaws about just creating a committee. And so we talked about, and one of the fun parts for me is that any committees that we create, the vice president is chair of all of those committees. But we talked about trying to work out, rather than creating a position for board appointed fundraiser, creating just a semi-permanent fundraising committee, and making that, official under the bylaws and all that stuff, and asking Todd to do most of the hard work on that, because he seems really energetic and able and ready, willing, and able to do that. But that we talked about. So we talked about creating a fundraising committee that would, have me on it as the official chair, but then Lizette had been on some kind of fundraising committee in the past. There she is. And Todd had been a part of that too, I guess, but I don't know who else was on that committee or anything about it, because I wasn't on it. Robin was too.
Jason was, and we were talking about membership. This was like back in.
It wasn't me, but I found there's a page on the wiki listing subcommittees, and there is a committee called Funding Committee, and it lists Robin, Chris Rohde, Todd, and Lizette. So maybe that can just be folded into or transformed into the fundraising committee. I don't know.
Yeah.
How's that sound to you, Todd? You're muted, you know.
Yep. No, that sounds good. You know, as long as it's evolving and we're moving forward and we have a means to put something together, then fantastic.
Yeah, what we talked about is trying to come up with a list of members to be on that committee and then find times to meet and doing some kind of official report back to this group every month. So I don't know that Robin wants to be a part of it because Robin has been dying to be done with her commitments to koha-US for at least a year. But that was a question I had for everybody here is, does anybody else want to participate? Does anybody else want to participate in that besides, I guess we would have Lizette, Todd, Chris. Chris, are you still up for that?
Yeah. I'm good. We had talked about the role of treasurer on that and with the treasurer.
Yes, and having John part of that too. But then is there anybody else here that wants to take part?
Vicky volunteered in the chat.
Oh, did she? I'm not paying attention to the chat anymore, Vicky. So I will get in touch with all of these people by email, and then we can figure out a time to actually get together, probably in Zoom here, and have a discussion.
Excellent. Anything else, George?
I think I've got everything off of my notes from that other meeting we had. The other things we talked about is, I guess, were a fundraising process, grant writing process, make sure that the committee addresses any conflict of interest issues, because Todd was worried about that initially, and to make sure that, the fundraising committee doesn't put anybody in a position where they're either, leveraging their participation in the committee to help their business or their library specifically, or vice versa, using their position in a business or a library to influence the fundraising committee. And to make sure that all fundraising actions, get reported to the board and the membership in some kind of more formal way than just a discussion. Some kind of written reports is what we talked about. So,
okay. Todd, do you have anything to add?
No, sir. I'll just I'll wait to hear from George and see how we can how we're going to proceed.
Awesome.
Hopefully I'll be able to get in touch with everybody by the end of the day. That being said, that emergency call Chris mentioned, that's my ringtone on my phone for when my wife calls. And we've got a whole bunch of papers that we're in the middle of trying to finish selling our house in Idaho. And so I don't know what I'm going to be doing this afternoon other than sitting in a bank somewhere signing my name over and over and over again.
Yeah, I did that about 100 times last Friday.
Yeah.
The seller only had to sign her name.
So, George, when do you think you will organize a meeting of the fundraising committee to begin the processes?
Hopefully next week, although my next week on my calendar is filling up pretty quickly. Possibly that would be the week with the week of the 18th through the 22nd. I've got some big commitments that week, so maybe the week of the 25th through the 29th, early in the week.
So you should have your first meeting underway before the next general meeting.
Oh yeah, I think we can manage that.
Okay, so we'll keep you on the agenda to follow up and let us know what's happening.
Okay.
All right. And now we've got John for the Finance Committee.
Okay, let's go ahead and get my screen shared here.
So this is a financial report, but also we're talking about a committee as well.
Yes.
Okay.
The screen should have hopefully changed into something that says koha-US Treasurer's Report on it. Yes?
Yes.
Got it.
Impressive.
Okay, excellent. I've got quite a bit to talk about this first month because, number one, it was a month of transition, and number two, we just wrapped up what is currently our largest annual expense and source of income, that is to say the annual conference. I'm going to talk a little bit about the goals I would like to set for my tenure in this position, which will always include a report on the financial status of the organization. I'll talk a little bit about the transition, and then a few other things that I've been asked to look at either by Christopher or that have come up in the board meeting that we had about 2 weeks ago. It is my goal every month to provide you minimally with aggregated numbers from the previous month. And I say aggregated numbers because there are some instances in which I don't expect I'll have a final bank statement for that previous month yet, but I always intend to give you, at the very minimum, income and expense numbers as I'm expecting them to have posted to the bank account at any time. In addition to those preliminary numbers from the previous month, I'm hoping to always present to you final numbers for any month prior in which final numbers had not been presented, and then also any special notes. Like this report contains a special conference accounting report. If there are any special reports that need to be generated or shared with the membership, I'll do that during this monthly presentation. This is where we are right now. You will note that the statement from the bank here is dated 6/30. That's because I don't have the July or August statements yet. Robin put those in the mail to send to me yesterday. So the information you're looking at reflects the bank activity through the end of June and then estimated activity only through the end of August. And that's bank activity, not necessarily the entirety of all of the money that's come in and out of the organization. Starting balance of $887.40 with estimated gross income to be $1,025 and gross expenditures of $43.44. All of you that were in Coeur d'Alene know, of course, those expenses are not the final expenses. They only reflect a very small portion of the expenses, mostly the PayPal fees that we paid and the $5 a month we paid at the bank for online banking. There's a lot more, I shouldn't say a lot more income, there's about $275 worth more of income that will be posted in September because Robin deposited the last of that money yesterday. And then all of the expenditures for the conference will hit in September as well, with my authorization for the 2 checks to go out, one to Coeur d'Alene for everything that they require reimbursement for, and then a separate one for the pins that we received. They asked me about koha-US pins. So yeah, we've got 1868 there as a preliminary number, but that number is going to be lower than that when everything gets factored in. Looking at the conference itself, we had 53 paying attendees, 2 speakers opted out for a total of 1,325. You'll notice I keep income and expenses separately here. The actual net from any PayPal registration was less than $25. That's reflected in the PayPal, service fees that you see listed here on the expense side. Taking in $1,325 and expending only about $770, we did fairly well, with most of that, not surprisingly, going towards food and beverage. I've made the conscious decision to separate out, whenever possible, shipping and handling and taxes. Even as a tax-exempt organization, if we are reimbursing somebody and they have paid tax, which is something that happened in the case of Coeur d'Alene purchasing some of the food, not with a Coeur d'Alene Public Library card, but a personal card, we were charged tax, and I want to make sure that that money gets sent back to those people. So the $8.16 in shipping you see was actually for the pins. The $167 in taxes is food-oriented, related to some of the items that were purchased. The checks for the to CDA and I'm horribly about to mispronounce this, Winta, am I close? Public Library or County Library rather, for the pins. Robin had those checks written. She's sending them to me so I can put them together with an accounting of what constitutes those checks, and when I get them, I'll put that all together and I expect I'll have those 2 checks out to those 2 organizations out at the beginning of next week. I've been awaiting a final informational packet from Robin, which will include the 2 bank statements since June, in addition to a statement from May, which was not in the information that she gave me because she didn't have it at the time. I look forward to examining that packet and assembling it all. Note that we will begin formally tracking our income and expenditures using an open source financial tracking software package called NewCash. NewCash is something I've actually been using for my personal investment and financial tracking since 2008. So I don't go into NewCash with blinders on. I'm fairly well familiar of how to use it, particularly for banking and expense tracking in that. It does have another whole business side that I have not even yet begun to explore because as an individual I haven't needed to. But this software does provide us with a good means of flexibility, and in support of the open source concept is an open source product itself. I've been charged with, by the board, Christopher specifically, in reviewing the requirements and the responsibilities for the Office of Treasurer. I'm in the midst of doing that, and according to the bylaws, if I have any recommended changes, I'll submit those over to Jason for discussion at a later date. We are currently banking out of a Nebraska-based bank, which is fantastic when we have people in Nebraska. But we don't have that much anymore. So I am looking at changing our financial institution. I'm looking for something with a larger geographic footprint. I'm also looking for something that might look at us as a nonprofit and charge either no or fewer fees. And a number of possibilities have come to the forefront, and I'm going to spend the next few weeks investigating those. PNC Bank, Bank of America, and to a lesser extent, things like Chase and Fifth Third Bancorp. I'm also interested in examining online options because if we have the capability of making mobile deposits to a corporate account, and I don't know whether any of these banks allow that, that would certainly make it very easy, regardless of where the Office of Treasurer is located, to be able to carry out those types of functions. I was asked to look at our responsibilities in maintaining our 501c3 status. The IRS actually maintains a website, stayexempt.irs.gov, that has a whole series of documents meant to assist nonprofits over the course of their life cycle, especially those starting out. We are officially less than a year old, as recognized by the federal government, and we do have a number of different filing requirements. We are so small, we are actually eligible to file a Form 990 electronically. We don't even have to submit anything in paper, and with proper record keeping, it will usually take less than 20 to 30 minutes to go ahead and file that. I will be reviewing that documentation in its entirety and also attempting to create a calendar of when certain things need to be done. Keep in mind that as an organization, we are now running on a calendar year as a fiscal year. That impacts a number of different things as reflected in the bylaws, and it is something that we need to keep in mind when looking at the various filing requirements, because they typically say 5 months and 15 days after the end of your fiscal year, and so that needs to be taken into consideration when putting something together. And finally, the bylaws call for the organization of a finance committee. Right now, we don't have one. And so I'm putting out a call to volunteers for the 16 of you here. If you are interested in serving on the finance committee, please do feel free to go ahead and write me, jsturbin@umich.edu. I may put out a broader call to the koha-US electronic mailing list. I'm not quite sure what level this will entail. I'm expecting it might only be a 1-hour meeting once a month, maybe 1 or 2 weeks before this general meeting so that we can put everything together for the purposes of the presentation. That concludes this month's Treasurer's Report.
Excellent, John. Thank you so much. That's man, you just set another bar for us, so that's very good.
That was nice.
you know, in that treasurer committee, you know, one of the aspects of that is accountability. We want to remain transparent, and we want to make sure that we are held accountable with the funds that are given to us. And so, you know, John is, you know, taking this on. There's a lot that we're trying to establish this year as that organization, trying to become more official with our actions. So, John, thank you very much for taking all this on. This is a heavy position for koha-US. You know, we don't take this lightly, and I thank you for all the work that you put into it so far.
I look very forward to contributing to the group, and I thought this was, given what I do here at Kresge, this was a very good opportunity for me to contribute to a group that I look forward to interacting with quite a bit over the rest of my professional career.
So thanks again.
You're welcome.
All right. Last thing on our agenda, and we're making good time here, open discussion for bugs, issues, etc. Does anybody want to throw anything out there for the group? This is something a little bit more for everybody to participate in.
Well, this falls into etc. Did everyone see Peter Murray's announcement to the COA general list calling for people to discuss COA at ALA?
No, when did that go out?
Earlier this week. All for the koha-US list.
I put all my koha stuff in a separate folder. I haven't looked at it in a while, so I'll have to take a look. Peter Murray sent it out?
Yes.
I know I have that recently.
Let me see if I can find the date.
It appeared in Koha Digest, volume 143, issue 15, on Monday.
September 11th was the date. Sent to the main Koha list.
Fred, did you say that's going to be midwinter, or is that ALA proper?
I think it's midwinter.
Midwinter. Let's see here.
The less desirable ALA.
Yeah, especially when it's in Denver in January.
I was there in Denver in January. It was great. No snow yet.
Yet?
Yeah.
There's the information. So it's an open source community panel, ALA Midwinter.
It sounds very similar to the presentation panel I was on this past ALA that talked about, on a broader scale, it talked about ILS migrations, but I was one of the panelists selected to talk about a migration to an open source solution. This looks like it's something that's going to be specifically open source and not just a generic migration type discussion like what I participated in.
Actually, could one of you forward this to the koha-US list? Because my email system puts a protective wrapper around everything.
This particular email, this is just the digest.
Okay.
I think I have this. I think I have this single email. I can forward it to the koha-US list.
Mine turns every URL into about 3 lines of gibberish.
It's for your protection, Fred.
Oh, absolutely. But it makes it hard to forward things.
All right. Anyone else?
The last email I got from Peter Murray is when he was with Lyrasis.
I suppose he's the same Peter Murray. He used to be the director of computing at Catholic University.
This one here?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. It's just same name.
Yeah. Probably a common name then.
Yeah.
Let's see, if we're talking about bugs still, although I don't think that was a bug exactly, I don't
Give us an
know.
et cetera.
The koha-US mailing list, the page, I just threw the link in the chat window. I noticed the other day when I told somebody else about it, that the website is down, and I did let Bywater know, and they're working on getting it fixed, but I thought I'd let everybody know that. If you go to list.bywatersolutions.com and try to sign up for koha-US right now, it's not working. So, and they're aware of that.
Breaking lately.
Yeah.
Our phones are down, our emails having problems, and
It's a switchboard in Florida.
Oh, blame it on Florida.
No, it's not.
In Tampa.
I did want to throw one thing out to the group just to kind of get a feel on this before I'm starting to dig into this, and I have to submit yet another ticket to Bywater if I can get my emails to work. But we've had a couple times now that we've had fines crop up out of the middle of nowhere. You know, they're older fines, and people have been operating on their accounts just fine, and those fines hadn't shown up, and then all of a sudden these old fines appear that would have normally blocked them. I was wondering if anybody else had seen anything like that. It's random. It hasn't been happening to very many people. We've had a couple instances of it so far, but I was wondering if anybody else has been seeing anything like that.
We, I think, had that happen with one person too, because they had definitely checked out at our library with like $25 of fines on holds and stuff, but they didn't know about it, and nobody remembered overriding checking out to them or anything, and there weren't any notes, which we try to put on if we're doing something like that.
I think I had a similar thing. Maybe it's not the same, but like if something went overdue and then it got renewed, it would still be calculating off the same fine line, so it would actually create its own credit, and then it would build back up. I don't know if that's the same thing or not.
I've experienced what Jason is talking about, but I haven't experienced the other problem that I know of.
I'm this is one particular thing that I kind of feel pushy about, that I'm trying to generate more discussion about, because when it comes to finances, and especially with the libraries that are getting audited, they are real sticklers about making sure that everything is accounted for properly. And when you have something like this pop up, we have to start submitting tickets and saying, okay, can you explain this? Can you explain that? I've got 2 emails out right now trying to clarify balances on accounts, and I've got 2 instances where fines have cropped up that weren't there before, that they can't explain now, and they can't just say to the auditor, well, we don't know. And so this is something that I think that we've got to kind of pinpoint in Koha to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, because there's a level of accountability here, and it seems picky with when it's things like 10 cents or 20 cents here and there, but when you've got an account blocked, or you have an old fine or fee appearing on the account, and there's no way to explain it, and can't explain it through logs or anything, that becomes an issue. It doesn't matter how much it is, and unfortunately we have some patrons that will go to the director because of some fines, whether it's 10 cents or 25 cents or whatever, that they know that they've paid, and it's an old fine that crops up, or whatnot. So it's really ridiculous to me. Sometimes I just think okay, it's 25 cents. We can write it off. Let's get past it and move on. But when it happens enough, I think that it's time to look at things and say, hey, we need to tighten this up a little bit. So that's my 2 cents on 10 cents.
Chris, I see the ticket that you put in on that here, I believe, and it looks like it got a lot of review. But I don't know if it warrants putting in another ticket or how we escalate that. I know Nick's taken a look at it. I think Jay-Z Barton. There's been a few people that have looked at that for you. And
yeah, and I don't know if it has. I don't know if it's been our email or what, but I hadn't really received an answer to some of the initial questions on that as well. But I hadn't even put in a ticket yet. This just cropped up yesterday, another one with unexplainable balances. So, and I know we've got to be careful too about, I know that we have tables that can fill up, especially with a large consortium. You have tables that can fill up. And it's very easy to say, let's clean up this table and that table. And it's another thing when you have something come up prior to your cleanup that you can't explain because either you've cleaned up some of those tables and old transactions or logs, and now you have nothing to go back on. So it's kind of a tricky situation. How much can you clean up in Koha and keep it streamlined so that it's not bogged down with heavy tables from 5 years of data, and what do you need to hold on to for transactions that are unresolved. So I think it's tricky. I don't know how to easily remedy these things. I know that the accounts is something that has been due for an overhaul, and we've had to chip at it because we couldn't do the big overhaul that Kyle had presented a while back because it was just too much of an undertaking to QA and cover all the changes in it at once. So just some thoughts. If anybody else is running into things, definitely I think we need to discuss it. It needs to, if it's an issue, even if it's an underlying issue, if it's not, the most, notorious bug out there, it's still an issue that needs to be dealt with, especially when it comes to accountability. It's one thing if you have a hold drop, but it's another thing when you're dealing with people's finances. All right. Anything else?
I don't know. I don't think anybody else here attended the community meeting on the IRC last week, but I did, and it looks like at the community meeting we discussed putting a deadline on submissions for the international conference at the end of this month, and then at the next meeting voting on so what is so far the one proposal for the international meeting. And it looks like unless somebody out there is submitting a proposal right now, it's almost certain that the next international meeting will be in Portland. So we should probably start thinking about that in terms of the conference for next year, and doing what we talked about at the conference in Coeur d'Alene, and either just folding ourselves into the international conference, maybe having I'm sure it's going to be a strong presence of like the people that I see on the screen in front of me at the international conference if it's going to be in the US. So we should probably start thinking about our role, and maybe within the next couple of months come up with a conference planning committee for next year's conference to figure out what we're going to do.
Yeah, in fact, Jason, let's have on the agenda for next month. Let's talk about rolling out a new committee for whether we're rolled in or we're doing something separate, we should still have a committee. We need to have a presence there. I definitely want to be there, but I think it's important that we get on this. We've done a good job on staying on top of these conferences each year and planning well in advance. So I'm looking forward to it. We need a representation there, at least, with the vendors, so that we make people aware that we're here, and we can start pulling in more people to generate interest. So, Jason, I'd like to have that on the agenda. I'd also like to have on the agenda some discussion about training. We have talked about down the road, we want koha-US to be a go-to place for training. We've talked about mentorship, and we need to follow up on some stuff. So the next board meeting that we have, we're going to need to go over some of that mentor information that we collected from the last conference here in Coeur d'Alene, and we need to follow up with it and make sure that people are getting connected to other people. So we have to figure out how that's going to happen and what that looks like and how we can stay on top of that. But also, I want to have a discussion about training. What does training look like for koha-US? And one last note, and then I'm going to close up shop here because we are out of time. But I just wanted to mention, we talked about membership. koha-US will remain open to everybody, whether you are a member or not. The membership has specific privileges for the organization, but that does not mean that it is not available to all to participate with and discuss. Whether training becomes part of one of those membership privileges, I don't know. We haven't had an in-depth discussion about that, but I do want to make sure that everybody feels welcome, that we continue to keep this open to everybody, regardless of membership. And I am grateful for everybody that's here. And last call for questions or discussion before we wrap up.
Can we talk about when our next meeting is?
Absolutely.
So I don't mess it up this time.
Wow, that's great.
So it looks like the second Wednesday in October is October 11th, which is our usual time. Do we want to do 11 o'clock or do we want to go back to 10:30? Because apparently that was when it was supposed to be.
Let's go back to our original time. Let's try and keep it consistent. So
yeah, right now I have the Zoom room set up on a schedule for 10:30 the second Wednesday of each month. So if we're going to change the time, I need to change my settings in Zoom to make sure we can still use this room.
I say we keep it at 10:30.
Okay. I will make that change in my announcements and stuff.
10:30 Central?
Yeah,
Yes.
10:30 Central is what's on the calendar at Zoom.
Hey, real quick, I sent out an email to the board of directors, and it had an attachment. Marshall Breeding was really kind in giving me access, so I could pull koha-US or koha information out with email addresses. I don't know if we want to go through that, Jason or anybody that would want to take the time to go through that and see if there are US specific, which there are, US specific koha libraries, and maybe pull those emails out and include them in the next email about when this is going to be, and see if we can't kind of jack up our participation, or if we're comfortable with what we have and we just want to go about this slowly. I just thought I'd offer that.
We did discuss that a little bit, and I had reservations about sending out to random people with my own email address, so we were kind of hoping to wait until we could get those at koha-US emails established before we started sending out kind of spammy stuff to random people that aren't expecting it. But
Understood.
It's definitely on our back burner, I would say.
Well, I wanted to say for the next meeting, what I've got on my list of things to do is to discuss Google for Nonprofits, which we should be further along in knowing about what our status is there. And then I'll talk about the fundraising committee meeting that we have sometime in the next 2 weeks. So I was wondering what everybody else is doing between now and the next meeting to get ready for the next meeting. That was my hope, to discuss that really quickly at the end.
I'll see here.
That was all I had in my notes. Aside from John was going to do a call for membership, maybe on the listserv for his finance committee, and then again, George is going to set up a committee meeting for fundraising. And as far as topics for the next meeting, we're going to talk about a conference planning committee and discussion of training as one of the things we offer. So
I would also like to have on there follow up on the website.
okay.
So we need to make sure that keeps progressing.
Yeah, I'll keep adding content, and I'll meet with Fred again. And I met with him before this meeting, so maybe Fred and I can have a pattern of meeting before the next meeting to go over what we have, and then I can present the next iteration.
Yep, sounds good.
Cool.
And then we should also hopefully have amendments to the bylaws in regards to membership for next meeting, so that we can have that sealed down.
Awesome. All right. Sounds like a plan. I'm going to go ahead and close this meeting. Thank you everyone very much for coming today, and thank you for the offset and the time, and we'll be back at 10:30 next month. So
Excellent.
have a good day.
All right, I'm going to stop recording right now.